Namaste and welcome to this fourth and last video on the topic of permutation systems. Although I was originally planning many more talks on this subject, I have come to the conclusion that this topic is a bit too intricate to talk about in abstracted form and hence best explained in context. So as such, I will continue these talks with talks on the oldest book of classical Kabbalah, the Bahir, the Book of Clarity, on which I'm also writing a new edition, and deal with the permutation systems as they come up in that context. And then they're more alive and more true to their own nature, and probably more interesting to hear about. Now, in the last video on the topic of permutation systems, I elaborated on the dynamics of interaction with these living systems and emphasizing the overlaps with the more traditional expressions of meditation. So, of course, meditation in the classic sense of the word implies the end of an agent that differentiates or causes differentiation between that which is observed and the observer. So now the preferred vehicles for this exercise are usually connected with our own dispositions. So for example, in Zen, these vehicles are culturally determined as well, and they can be so-called wall gazing, or the pondering of koans, flower arrangement, tea ceremony, archery, etc. So I discussed in the last video how in Kabbalah the same vehicle can be a permutation system. So as I said in the last video, permutation systems show the Kabbalist how the subjects permuted by the system function in their specific realm by transporting the Kabbalist to that realm. As such, the personal interaction with a particular system is very much like the way the rabbis of old were shown the various palaces by angelic guides. So I'm talking about Merkabah mysticism, also called Hechalot mysticism, the plural of palace. So referring to the situation in which these mystics functioned. They traveled from palace to palace and were shown around by guides who could be rabbis or angels, for example. Now, Metatron, the Prince of the Countenance, to me a representative of Shiva, as I discussed in length in my videos on that subject, features as one of the guides in some of these texts. Now, in the realm of the Abba system, the system that I ended the last talk with, the case there is that the Abba system transports the mystic to a realm that is characterized in general by having a strong connection with the Father, and then the Father in the sense of the pre-manifested. So it's a metaphysical concept. So the implications of this system, however, go much further than that. And hence I come back to what I said. In abstracted form, this is what it would be. It would be a system that brings you to the realm of the Father in the pre-manifested sense. But if it's more in context, many more things come up. And it becomes less abstract and more personal. So I introduced the Abba system as belonging to a group that is characterized by the fact that their names have meaning. Abba means father. Now this is correct, and recognizing and or applying linguistic meaning is a legitimate way of finding a system and then start interacting with the system. But it can be, to some extent, a somewhat impersonal entry, because it's based on simple rationalizing, really. So one will find that the more personal and intricate the way to a specific system is, the more personal and intricate the subsequent dealings with it will be. So as a result, one will understand the system better, and one will be more in touch with the finer details of its realm when one walks one's own path in getting there. Now this, of course, holds true to spiritual life in general. When one only copies others or only follows other people's prescriptions, may they be written down or verbally handed down, one's spiritual life is more confined because it's confined by what other people think is important. So it's less rich than when one finds one's own spiritual expression. So to fully appreciate this in the context of permutation systems, let me say a bit more about the importance of the genesis of a system, of the way towards a system. Now, the depth to which one can understand or experience the realm of a given permutation system is dependent on the intention involved. We talked about this in the other videos as well. But the depth, more correctly, is dependent on the intentionlessness with which the study that leads one there is undertaken. So I discussed this in the previous video when mentioning the absence of direction. That is part of a study purely for the sake of studying. In Hebrew, the terminology for this is, or the term for this is lishma. Thus, if one reads or hears about the system, forms an idea about it, and wants to see if the outcomes comply, these reasons for interacting with the system will severely limit one's experience. If, on the other hand, during study, that is an intentionless meditation in itself, words and or letters start pointing the Kabbalist at letters that form a system, and the Kabbalist opens up to the interaction this system is offering, then things become more dynamic and much more in-depth. So in the latter case, the system, like meditation, presents itself to the Kabbalist without any manipulation on the side of the Kabbalist, and basically absorbs the Kabbalist. So pathways through the numbers and letters will now open up before the mystic, like seas that are being parted, to use a biblical metaphor. Now, letters and or numbers that have something special to impart will appear special. So to one person, they will appear as if written in capital letters, or they will appear as if lit up by light, or things like this. In this case, the interaction with the system is personal, and the insight can be life-changing. So it holds true in Kabbalah in general, also holds true in the specific case of permutation systems. That is, the beating heart of Kabbalah lays in reception, the meaning of Kabbalah reception, not in projection. So not in amassing theories and knowledge and then trying to project that onto reality, but actually stopping all amassment and opening up so that one may receive the wisdom that is out there. So of course we're now looking at the source text in a properly Kabbalistic way, that is as living texts, so that interact with the mystic on many levels, just as much intertextually as extratextually as well, which is a whole different topic. Now this particular understanding of the genesis of a system, though, implies that there are really as many potential ways to come to a system as there are people. And this reminds one of what is said about the rabbis of old, that they said there are as many valid interpretations of the Torah as there are true believers, which is a beautiful concept in itself. So my own personal first encounter with the Abba system, the system I ended the last talk with, the father system, was as part of my work on the Bahir. So like I just said, I've been working on a new edition of this source text of classical Kabbalah, showing how, contrary to scholarly belief, this text, from a Kabbalistic point of view, is definitely one whole, with clearly defined ideas, theories, techniques, and spiritual pathways. Now, in my work, I concentrate on the central importance of permutations, permutation systems in this book of clarity. So what I found is that these systems are not just important elements that the book imparts, but they are the key to understanding its words and its entire reality. So to me, this really is not the book of clarity, but the book of permutations. And as such, I will continue these short videos in the future on permutation systems in the context of the Bahir, the book of clarity. And the book opens with an archetypal dichotomy, light and darkness, that sets the tone for the book's being permeated by permutation systems. So dichotomies like these in creation can, after all, also be represented by a permutation system in which light is opposed to darkness, and other subjects will follow that trend. So a system that will turn them from an abstract idea, so abstract ideas as light and darkness, to be pondered into a dynamic reality that can be experienced when the Kabbalist enters the realm of the specific permutation system. Now, the Abba system first spoke to me when working on the 9th Mishnah. Every Mishnah it holds a lot of information. So writing on one Mishnah, which is like a small paragraph, will take me weeks to express everything that's in there, and it will be 10 to 15 A4s in information. So every Mishnah is very dense, every word has meaning, every letter has meaning, the order of the letters have meaning, etc., etc. So I came across many other systems before I came to the Abba system, but in the 9th Mishnah, the Abba system started speaking up, if you will. So even though in the subsequent talks I will start with the first chapter of the Bahir, and I will continue from there to show how the systems interact with, or are part of the interaction with the text and the greater reality of the text. Let me just read this 9th chapter in its entirety, just to give an idea of the style of the Bahir, the brevity, and its amazing intricacy, really. So the 9th Mishnah starts with, well, let me just read it in English first. So what is the meaning of, and then the meaning, the verse that follows is Deuteronomy 33:23. So what is the meaning of he possesses it? It should have said, as in the text should have said, possesses instead of it. So this means that God himself is included, since the word he possesses it, Yirasha, contains the word Resh Ja, as in possesses Ja. So this can be compared to a king who had 2 treasuries and set one of them aside. So finally he said to his son, take what is in these 2 treasuries. And the son said, perhaps he will not give me what he has set aside. But the king said to him, take everything. It is thus written, the sea and the south he possesses. Also Jah he possesses, and everything is to be given to you if you only keep my ways. So this is the 9th Mishnah. As I said, it's very short, a bit baffling in English perhaps, but in Hebrew, the connections between the different trains of thought are very clear and very deep. So like I said in previous talks, usually in Kabbalah, the main interpretations of a text are in 4 layers. Like I said, these 4 layers are referred to by the name for paradise, Pardes. So the 4 letters that form the word Pardes. It's an acronym, so the letters refer to different ways of reading and understanding a text. So the simple way is the way of alluding to other topics. Then there's wider allusions incorporating other texts, traditional texts, the Talmud as well, and the Mishnah and the Midrashim. And then there's the layer of the secret, which is Sod, which is the final letter of Pardes, paradise. Now this secret level is the level of Kabbalah. And of course, as I said before as well, this is not just one level. Kabbalah has many different pathways. And what I'm trying to do is in this edition of the Bahir is to show at least a few of them with every Mishnah. So now this 9th Mishnah, even though in English these words, like I said, already show to contain, well, it might be a bit confusing, but the words are very pregnant if you read them in English as well. But in their original Hebrew, the numbers chosen by the author of the Bahir are very specific. And often the numbers will lead you to permutation systems, and then applying these systems to the specific chapter that I just read will unveil different layers and will show how that specific Mishnah, that specific chapter, is linked to the Mishnayot, the chapter preceding it, and all the trains of thought that the author keeps in mind whilst writing this book. Let me see how much. Yeah, so I'm already at the end of the time I am allotted for this video, so I will leave it at this now. So the next time I would like to then start with this 9th Mishnah and to start explaining how the Abba system came forth from this Mishnah, and how it started a whole new train of thought. So I will give a bit of a background. Let me explain that the king's 2 treasuries that I mentioned in this Mishnah, the one that's set aside is affiliated with the world to come, the letter Yud of the divine name Jah, and the tree of knowledge, knowledge of good and bad. So these are certain specific subjects that will come up. And I will start the next video discussing this and incorporating it all into one greater whole, I hope, at least. Thank you for watching again, and namaste.